Hey, good afternoon, guys. I wanted to talk to you about a bit of a rough subject, something that happened within our town last Friday, May 31st. Pretty sure most of you already know what I'm talking about. It is the shooting that happened at the Virginia Beach Municipal Center. We wanted to go over what happened with you guys and how our community is faring. It's been really rough on everybody. Pretty much most people in town knew someone affected by the tragedy. Hampton Roads is often called the smallest big community in the world, and it's for good reason. We have millions of people that live in the 7 cities, plenty that live in Virginia Beach, and it's very easy to know a lot of people here. So you'd be surprised just how often you run into people and how close our community is. And I'm not sure if that's because we have such a large military presence or the fact that our citizenry is very diverse in a way that people come from all walks of life here, and they find a way to love one another and to be a close-knit community. We wanted to make this video a few days after it happened to make sure that we got our facts straight, and there's still plenty of facts to come out. The investigation is still ongoing, and it's a mess. A lot of people are mourning and hurting and are very confused and angry, and we wanted to make this video to catch you guys up on what's going on and also how you can help. So before I even start talking about anything else, there are links down below that they give you a direct way to donate to the victims, to buy shirts to show your support and everything. All the merchandise that is listed below, all of it goes to the victims, and also all of the events coming up in our area, so that you can show your support and your love for the victims of this horrible tragedy. There's a lot of information I have to cover, so you'll probably see me looking down at the sheets of paper I have down here. It's so much to cover, it's so confusing that there's no way I could bring this to you guys without having this typed up. So if I look down too much, sorry. A lot of companies like ours are going to be talking about this. They almost always do. On YouTube and social media, they break it down, they talk about what happened. And we're going to kind of do the same thing, but we're doing it for different reasons. Firstly, Applied Defense Concepts' whole reason for being is the preservation of life. So any incident like this catches our attention, and we want to find ways to help those that are affected by it and help prevent others from happening in the future. This incident is just so much worse for us because we are Virginia Beach. We are a part of the Virginia Beach community, and almost all of us grew up here. And we feel a responsibility, especially to our community, to help our citizens live safer, happier lives. That's why ADC exists. We also work here. We work, many of us, at that exact municipal center. It's a weekly occurrence that some of us have to go up there and pick up warrants, drop off people, and even testify in court and present evidence. So that municipal center is very familiar to us. It's a staple of our work, it's a staple of our lives, so we feel connected to the community there. Our community, especially the city workers of Virginia Beach, were very affected by what happened, to say the least. And it's a big community even of just Virginia Beach city workers. There's a lot of them, and they all know each other. And many of them have worked there for years, some of them over 20 years. So they definitely know everybody within the community. They are really hurting. They're trying their best to, I think, get back up on their feet, and they're going to. But our entire community feels for them. It's also affected me on a very personal level because 2 of my very best friends worked in Building 2. A few years back, only a few years ago, and they could have been there. They could have, had they decided to stay with the city a little longer, they could have been involved in this. And it shows just how close incidents like this can hit to home. And when I found that out, that it was the same building that they worked in, my heart just dropped. And in fact, they're struggling really badly with this because they knew some of the people that were injured and hurt and killed by the gunmen. We also wanted to spread awareness of how serious the active shooter threat is. It's a reality, and it can happen if it can happen in a place that's supposed to be as secure as a United States courthouse, it can happen at a place of work anywhere, at a school like we've seen in the past. And we have to take that threat very seriously. And this has been a very big wake-up call for Hampton Roads. And lastly, we want to honor and mourn the victims of this tragedy. There are quite a few that died. There are 4 that were injured, and there are heroes that we wanted to honor as well, that sacrificed themselves and put themselves in harm's way to save lives. We want to make sure that their names are known. So just a quick disclaimer before I go any further, this video is not talking about the gun debate or gun laws. That's not the time nor the place. We're not talking about tactics or anything like that. Right now, we're just focusing on what happened, how to heal, and honoring the victims. I also will not be mentioning the shooter's name. If you really want to find out who did it, you can look it up yourself, but I'm not going to give the shooter any notoriety on our channel. I'm going to go over a quick timeline of what we know so far. A lot of this may be subject to change because, like I said, the investigation is still ongoing. May 31st, last Friday, the Virginia Beach Municipal Center, Building 2, which is a public works building, was attacked by a lone gunman. He began his shooting at around 4 p.m. in the parking lot by killing a man in his car and then shooting a woman on her way out of the building. He then entered the building and began shooting indiscriminately at whoever he could. And by 4:09 p.m., 4 officers, 2 from the Detective Bureau and 2 from K-9 and the Special Operations Unit, I guess they were doing both, they responded. They found the victims outside. By 4:12, police responders began evacuating the municipal center and locking the entire location down. The police that were already in the building began hearing gunshots on the 2nd floor. They followed the sounds of the gunshots, and what they called prolonged gun battle ensued. Now, for many of you guys out there that don't know much about a gunfight, they last for very short periods of time. They're usually only a few seconds, and whatever happens in those seconds happens. So a prolonged gun battle meant it probably lasted over 5 minutes, maybe even 10. The reports show that the shooter shut himself in an office and was firing through a door and the walls. At 4:19, an officer was struck but was saved from serious injury by his bulletproof vest. At 4:21, officers arrived on the east side and were successfully able to corner off and contain the suspect. At 4:27, victims and a sole survivor were found on the 3rd floor by officers. And by 4:32 p.m., citizens began to carry out casualties from the building. At 4:43, the suspect was shot by police, and at the time, he was taken into custody alive. He later died of his injuries when they were trying to treat them en route to the hospital. I'm going to name each of the victims. The first was Laquita Brown, who had worked for the city for 4.5 years. Tara Gallagher, who had worked for the city for 6 years. Mary Gale, who had worked for the city for 24 years. Catherine Nixon, a 10-year worker of the city. Richard Nettleton of Norfolk, who had been working for the public utilities for 28 years. Christopher Kelly Rapp of Powhatan. Joshua Hardy of Virginia Beach. Michelle Missy Langer of Virginia Beach. Robert Bobby Williams of Chesapeake. Herbert Smelling of Virginia Beach. Alexander Gusev of Virginia Beach. And lastly, Ryan Cox, also of Virginia Beach, who had worked for the city for 12 and a half years. Now that last name, Ryan Cox, deserves some special recognition. This man is a hero, no doubt about it. After the shooting began and the workers realized what they were hearing inside were actually gunshots, Ryan led a group to the break room and stood watch for a little while to see if the shooter would pass them by. When he saw his opening, he led that group of people into an office and instructed them to lock the door. One of the people in his group stated that she felt safe with him and that his voice was calm. It showed that he was thinking and that he wasn't panicking like everybody else was. And this coolness under pressure is what saved their lives, because he eventually told them to lock the door and barricade it, to which they did. To their dismay, Ryan didn't follow them into the room. Even though everybody in the group kept asking him, this is what he said. Literally, this is what he said. "I've got to see if anybody else needs help. Barricade the door, do it now." And they did, and it saved their lives. Ryan Cox was unfortunately one of the people found dead in the building. I hope that his sacrifice is remembered forever. I hope that everybody remembers the lives he saved and how brave he was when he was unarmed and still willing to help people in the building. Now, there are many ways to support the victims, like I said at the beginning of the video. I'm going to provide some links down below and on screen. The first is support VBstrong.com. This is where you can buy your t-shirts and your merchandise, and all of the proceeds goes to the victims. I'm actually going to be getting a t-shirt later on today. Another way is unitedwayshr.org/VABeach. That's how you can donate directly. You can send money, no merchandise needed. It's just money going directly to the victims. It's a very good way to support the cause. And lastly, I'm going to provide a Virginian Pilot article that shows all of the local events that are going to be going on to support the victims, so that you can attend if you're in town or if you want to come into town and show your support that way. As for motive, we don't really know why the shooter did what he did. Again, we're not going to name him, but even though the investigation is still ongoing, the motive isn't clear yet. He was a city worker for 15 years. He had no disciplinary problems and was in good standing with Public Works. Hours before the shooting began, he submitted his 2 weeks notice to a supervisor, stating that for personal reasons he needed to leave and that it was an honor to serve the city. Nothing's been reported about anything he said during the shooting that could imply why he was doing it. That may change later on, because I'm sure more people are being interviewed as the days go on. I'm not going to go too deeply into the weapons he used, as that's not as important right now, and more information is going to be released later, but he used two .45 caliber handguns, unknown make and model, and they were both legally purchased in 2016 and 2018. 2 sound suppressors were also found attached to those handguns, making this one of the first high-profile incidences to involve suppressors in a really long time. So what do we do now? How do we move on? How do we heal? Firstly, I don't think right now is the right time to politicize this tragedy. Allowing the community, the victims and their families to mourn and heal should be our priority. There'll be plenty of time to talk about everything from firearms to why the buildings were secured the way they were, and everybody, I'm sure, is going to have their own opinion on it and how we could better improve it. Now is just not that time. There'll be plenty of time later, I guarantee it. Something that is very important to talk about is the active shooter threat, while rare, is very real in our country. It's a phenomenon that is still being studied and I think isn't really understood yet. If you feel unprepared or unsafe at work, if you feel like your place of work just does not have a plan in place, talk to a supervisor, a manager, an owner, whoever you have to see about getting a plan put in place. And that can be through online resources, or it can be through a company. It doesn't have to be through us. It can be through anybody. It's just good to have a plan. You have a fire escape plan. You should have an attack plan as well. If you are a Hampton Roads resident, I really recommend that you support the victims and the community in what they're going through. Be a part of the community, and any way that you can show support, do it, because people need your help. Guys, the next few weeks are going to be undoubtedly messy. People are going to be angry and confused and upset. They're going to be lashing out, they're going to be hurt, and it's all totally understandable. But I do know this tragedy will not define us. It'll only serve to strengthen our community. So stay strong, Hampton Roads. Stay strong, Virginia Beach.